Hello folks, my name is Mark, this is Why I Hate the World. How you guys doing? So I made a video a little while ago about social justice warriors, and I wanted to expand a little bit on the topic of racism, specifically how racism has been redefined in social justice circles. And so to most people, when you say racism and you say, well, what does that mean, right? To most people, racism is when you do value judgments based on race. And usually it includes stereotypes, So, for example, black people are criminals, Latinos are lazy, Asians are good at math, white women are snobby, shit like that. That's what most people think when you say racism. But in social justice circles, they have a different definition, and their definition includes a power dynamic. And it kind of goes like this. Racism is only racism when the group that is the victim is the one that's not in power. So, for example, that's why when they say white, reverse racism doesn't exist because white people can't be victims because the group white people is the group that's in power. So the example I used last time was of Sui Park, or Sui Park, or whatever her name is, Susan Park. I don't know what it is. Anyway, she was the girl that a few years ago, if you remember, did the ban Colbert thing, right? And while she was being interviewed with HuffPost, she told her interviewer that his opinion on race didn't matter because he was a white male. And that's why she can say that and say that it's not racist, right? Because white men are the group that's in power, and that didn't really fly with everybody else because it's fucking bullshit. So the point they're trying to make, right, is that it's less damaging when the victim group is the group that's in power, is basically what they're saying. But the mistake they make is that then they assume that power and privilege is a necessary component for racism, which is simply not true. So in other words, minorities who hate white people because of their race are most definitely acting racist. However, most examples of that are less damaging to white people, right? So you don't usually see, people being arrested in higher numbers or, being refused jobs or home loans, things like that, because they're white. You don't really see that happening, right? The problem is that does it make it any less damaging to the individual who's white? I don't think so. I mean, like if I were to go into a restaurant, right, and they were to tell me to get out because I'm white and we don't serve your kind here, right, am I supposed to feel like I'm not being discriminated against because, why? Because my group as a class has all the power? It doesn't make any fucking sense, and it falls flat when you examine it. And, that's why when in certain colleges now, like I'm reading stuff like, they're creating safe spaces where, minority students can go and do stuff where white people aren't allowed. Like for an example of that, in the United Kingdom, and there's a college, Goldsmith University, I think, and the student union officer, her name was like, I think it's like Bahar Mustafa or something like that, and I saw a thing where she put on this event and she tweeted out that, for white people not to come to this event, right? Because it was a safe space for minorities or whatever. And then when they called her on it, she said, well, reverse racism doesn't exist because white people are in power. And it doesn't make any, it doesn't resonate with people, right? Because those individuals who aren't allowed to go to that are still being discriminated against. It doesn't make any fucking sense, And that's the same thing, like when you examine these kinds of rationalizations, they fall flat. I mean, let's say, like, for example, what if you're only part white? Like me, I'm actually not completely white. I look like it, but I'm actually part Asian. You can't really see, like, my eyes and stuff. Right, so does that mean that I can only partially be discriminated against, Does that make any sense? Is it because, like, since I'm part white, like, am I allowed to go to this event or, whatever? Or but since I'm part Asian, does that mean that I'm partially in an oppressed class? Like that, it doesn't make any sense, right? Or this definition also doesn't protect minorities from being racist towards other minorities. What if you're a black person that hates Latinos? Okay, is it okay because like black people are more oppressed than Latinos? Is that how it works? And Latinos have more power? What about Asians that hate black people? Is it because Asians have more power that's racism? But it wouldn't be if it's the other way around. Doesn't make any sense, right? It doesn't hold up to any logical examination. Not the same way that the old definition that everybody else uses, saying making judgments based on race and skin color is wrong. Okay. And here's the other thing is that, when you're talking, what does in power mean? What the fuck does that possibly mean? Like what? The president? You're what? And nobody can give me a definition of that. Does it mean that you're just rich? You're rich, you're in power, you're the boss. So like, rich black people, or do they and if a rich black guy were to tell me to fuck off because I look white, is he then guilty of being racist? Or is it not because his, group, black people, for the most part, are still poor? Like, it doesn't make any sense. What if I were to go to Africa, where everybody there is black and they're in power, and then they were to tell me to fuck off because I'm white, or I look white? Are they guilty of being racist? Or is it, are they still not racist because of my home country, the black people there are the ones that aren't in power? See, it doesn't make any, it's the same problem that the white supremacists and the race realists have. When you examine any of this stupid shit, it just doesn't stand up. There's no fucking basis in reality for any of it. And and I understand what they're trying to do. They're basically trying to counter arguments made by the far right wing. They're just going about it completely wrong, and all it's doing is adding fuel to the fire and making the rest of everyone else who actually cares about equality. It's making us all look bad. So, adios.